Okay, so let's start with the integral calculus. And the first thing is that, sorry, let me just, where's the damn slide? Okay, okay. So let me just change this position. Okay. Now, in the first semester, we had started with a function y equal to fx. Y is a function of x. And if you wanted to study how a change in x is going to affect a change in y, we looked at the derivative. We took dy dx, which is f prime x. And if it is a case of several variables, we took the partial derivatives. So f prime x1, f prime x2, and so on. Now, in this module, we are going to examine the opposite. So we are given information on f prime x, and the objective is to recover the original function. Now, related to this concept is the idea of a definite integral. Definite integral occurs is a case when we have a curve and we want to find the area under this curve given a certain boundary. So we have two boundary points on the curve and we want to find out the area under the curve but between these two boundary points. Now, integral calculus is very important in economics. Uh, it provides the foundation for dynamic optimization when you go to the postgraduate level. But even in your undergraduate level, you can find out the relationships between stocks, which are amounts at a particular point of time, and flows, that is, changes in the stocks over a period of time. More important, we can also find out the relationship between marginal and total concepts. When we did the derivative, we moved from the total to the marginal. But in this case, we are moving from the marginal to the total curves. Like we may be given the marginal product curve and we want to find out what is the total product curve. Okay. Now, as I've said that one important concept is definite integral, but right now we are going to start off with what is called indefinite integral. Here, the problem is, as I've told you, how to obtain the original function. So we are given y equal to x square, and we know that the derivative is 2x. But suppose we are told the opposite. We are just told that f prime is equal to 2x. Can we infer what is the original function whose derivative is 2x? So can we find out the original function which is y equal to x square? And the answer is that, so you can see that we are moving from the function to the derivative in the earlier semester. Now we are moving back. And the answer is that to some extent we can. Why? Because x square and x square plus c, when c is a constant, both have the same derivative, which is 2x. So that means we can recover the original function, but only up to a certain point. So an indefinite integral can be defined as follows. We have a function fx whose derivative is f prime x. Then any transformation of fx, that is gx equal to fx plus c, will also have the same derivative f prime x. Okay, so whether it is fx or whether it is fx plus c, we will get the same derivative. So that means in the case of an indefinite integral, we cannot recover the original, we cannot recover the original function completely. At most, we can say that the original function is fx and there may be a constant term, but we don't know what the constant term is. So an indefinite integral is uh, the recovery of the original function partially. Now, the process of reverse differentiation is called integration, and the antiderivative of a function is referred to as indefinite integral. So that means the function fx. Okay. So if we recover from, we are given f prime and we recover fx, this fx is called the indefinite integral. Later on, we will come to definite integrals. Anyway, now in integral calculus, our notations will be slightly different. See, in differentiation, we denote a function by fx and its derivative by f prime x. But in integral calculus, the function will be indicated by capital Fx, and the derivative will be indicated not by f prime but by small fx. Okay, so to repeat, capital F indicates the function while small f indicates the derivative of this function. And C is the constant of integration. We can recover only part of the indefinite integral, which is fx, but we don't know whether it includes C or not. So we have to add a plus C, which is the constant of integration. So symbolically, we write integral of small fx dx is equal to capital Fx plus C. In, in this notation, capital Fx is called the integrand. Now, an alternative version of this is integration of capital Fx dx is equal to integral of, within brackets, d capital F by dx into d equal to integral of d into fx. Okay, and you can see the logic is this. We're using this relationship that the derivative of capital X is equal to small x. Sorry, there's a mistake over here. It should be, this should be small x over here. So this is in place of small fx. Let's paint it. It will be easier. We are substituting this. Okay, we are using this relation. We are simply substituting this in place of fx. So we get integral of d capital F. Okay. Now we have certain rules of integration: power rule, integral of sum, integral of constant multiple, exponential rule, and logarithmic rule. So you can see the power rule and log rule are related. The power rule is valid except in the case when n is not equal to minus 1. So in this case, minus 1 plus 1, this will become 0. Similarly, the denominator will also become 0. So this becomes infinite, undefined. So the power rule applies when n is not equal to minus 1. And if n is equal to minus 1, then the logarithmic rule will apply. So 1 by x is x n when n is minus 1. So in this case, you can see the power rule is x to the power of n plus 1 by n plus 1 if n is not equal to minus 1. And if n is equal to minus 1, we have log x plus c. Okay. By the way, I'm covering this chapter from mainly from Hoy, but you should also go through Chiang's chapter on integral calculus. So let us do some simple sums. So you will see that there are some parts of Chiang which you don't need, but just if you can just follow the notes and compare it with Chiang and Hoy's book, you will see which parts I'm using and which parts I'm not. Now, two very important rules are integration by substitution and The next one is integration by parts. The integral of fu into du by dx with respect to the variable x is the integral of fu with respect to the variable u. So you can see over here, this is the integration by substitution. Small fu, small f, du dx into dx integral is equal to integral of fu du, which is obviously, you know, capital Fu plus c. So we can prove this by the chain, we can prove this by the chain rule. So the chain rule is, okay, we don't have this. Okay. So the chain rule is that we are given a function fu where u is a function of x. So d of capital F by dx is can be written as d capital F by du into du by dx. So in this case, we write f prime. So the first term is f prime, and we multiply this by du dx. So f prime, capital F prime is simply written as fu plus c. Now, small fu into du by dx is the derivative of capital Fu. So the integral of the former must be, so we are taking the integral of this term. This is simply capital Fu plus c. Okay. So if you want, you can write this down. Otherwise, I'll go to the next slide. Okay. We now come to integration by parts. The integral of v with respect to u is equal to uv less the integral of u with respect to v. So that is integral of v du is equal to uv minus integral of u dv. The logic is simple. The product rule of differential gives us du dv is v into du plus u into dv. If we integrate both the sides, we get integral of d into uv. Sorry, just one second. And the right hand side is v du u dv. Okay. So this is simply uv. The right hand side is the same. And now we simply take the, we keep u dv over here. Sorry, v dv is kept here, and the second term is sent to the left hand side. uv minus, sorry, uv minus the second term integral of u dv. So I'll give you about 10 seconds. So how many of you don't have integral calculus in as your past papers?
Because those are in statistics there. The maximum at
তাদের নেই না আছে
statistics এ integral নেই আমাদের probability আছে
আচ্ছা তোমাদের ম্যাথস নেই এই টার্মে
নেয়নি কেউ
Sir, I don't think anyone does. মানে
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা but you have done integration right in your
hi sir.
হ্যাঁ স্যার 12
হ্যাঁ স্যার স্কুলে করেছি
Yes, sir. Class 12.
in a class 12 class 13 class 14 okay so let's see start integrating these functions. So what are these functions?
Power function.
Mhm. তিনটে একটু করে নাও, তারপর আমরা সলিউশনস গুলো দেখে নেব।
স্যার হয়ে গেছে।
So done.
হ্যাঁ, একটু ওয়েট করি,
Yes, sir.
so that the
Done.
majority does it. হ্যাঁ। Let's see. Okay. Khushi Patel. Khushi, will you please respond? Or have you run away? Okay. Let's see, Aryan Singh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, what are these? Please solve the first one.
So the first one is x to the power 4 by 4 plus c.
Okay, I got a message. Okay. So x 4 plus c. The next one, not Aryan
X to
Singh,
the power
someone else. Someone else. Gunjari.
Second one is x cube by 3 plus x to the power 6 by 6 plus c.
X cube.
By 3 plus x to the power 6 by 6 plus c.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. আমি পরেরটা ভুল শুনেছিলাম। Okay. The last one, let's see. Orpita Chanok. Okay, I don't think she's there. Srishti. Srishti, can you help me out with the last one? Okay, she's also. Shantanu?
Yes, sir.
হ্যাঁ, লাস্ট ওয়ানটা কি হবে বলো তো? 15x
Sir,
স্কয়ার।
sir, 30x cube by 3 plus c means
Okay,
yes. Yes,
30x cube.
yes. By 3 plus c, then if we cancel.
স্যার 30 কেন হবে?
30টা কি করে পেলে?
Sir, we have to. Oh, sorry, sir. I made a mistake. Sorry, sir. I multiplied
Yeah.
it. Yes, sir. Sir, 15x cube by 3. Yes. So 5x cube plus c.
Okay. Okay. So the rules of integration can be combined. So so far what we have done is we have just used one rule of integration, but obviously we can combine different rules of integration. So here we are combining the chain rule, and we are using the rule for the fx. Okay. Okay. So Anandarupa, can you solve this one, please? Will you help me out with this, please?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. হ্যাঁ বলো, করে নি বলো।
Sorry, multiplication and formula type for bole deben. Mane integration of huge.
অসুবিধা হচ্ছে কেসে? Just look at this rule carefully. এইখানটা দেখো, look at this term. E to the power of fx আছে, ঠিক আছে? fx কে যদি ডেরিভেটিভ নাও তাহলে কি হচ্ছে? f prime x, right? So if you take the derivative of this,
Ah, sir.
if you take the derivative of this, this is f prime x into e to the power of fx.
Yes, sir.
ঠিক আছে? এবার
Sir-
এইটা, হ্যাঁ, x স্কয়ার কে যদি ডেরিভেটিভ নাও কি হবে?
Sir, 2x.
So what is this? 2x?
2x. হ্যাঁ স্যার কেটে যাবে।
ঠিক আছে, তাহলে তো কেটে যাবে না, যেটা হচ্ছে যে তাহলে ঠিক এই ফর্মটাতে আছে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ।
I've got e, এখানে আমার একটা ফাংশন আছে x স্কয়ার,
Yes,
ঠিক আছে?
sir.
ডেরিভেটিভ নিলে, ঠিক আছে, এটা f প্রাইম, this is the derivative of x square.
Sir, e to the power x square.
হ্যাঁ, it's simply e to the power of fx, then fx is x square.
Yes, sir. E to the power x square plus e.
Okay, so here we have got the chain rules that if you take the log of a function, then this is f prime x by fx. So if you see, if you have f prime x divided by fx into dx, it simply means that you have the original function will be log of fx. ঠিক আছে? Deepika, will you help me out, please?
Yes, sir.
Set a problem on this.
Okay, sir. Just a minute.
Yeah, sure. তোমাকে একটা প্রবলেম ফ্রেম করতে হবে, a numerical problem.
Sir, I am done.
হ্যাঁ,
Sir, if we integrate 2x dx by x square plus 1,
integrate. Okay, how do I bring the, wait a minute, let me bring the, একটা সিম্বল আনতে হবে না? Okay, it's better if I go to, হ্যাঁ বলো।
integration of 2x dx
2x dx.
divided by x square plus 1.
Okay, very good. So who will solve this? Not Deepika, someone else, please.
So can I solve?
No. Certainly not. It's too tough for you. Rajashree? অর্পিতা পালিয়েছে। রাজশ্রী খান? ওকে, রৌনক তুমি করো তাহলে।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, 1 প্লাস এক্স স্কোয়ারটাকে জেড ধরে নেবো, তারপর ডেরিভেটিভ করলে 2x dx equal to dz, then integration of dz by z, so log of z plus c, and z এর ভ্যালুটা পুট করে দেবো।
সরি, জাস্ট দাঁড়া। So this was
x square plus 1 2x dx,
হ্যাঁ, এটা কি হবে?
x square plus 1টাকে আমি একটা ভ্যালু ধরে নিয়েছি z, তো 2x dx টা হবে dz।
হ্যাঁ, অত চিন্তা করার কি দরকার? এইটা ডেরিভেটিভটা কি?
হ্যাঁ 2x,
হ্যাঁ, এটা হচ্ছে 2x, তাহলে এটা এই ফর্মে চলে এলো f prime x by fx,
log of x square plus 1
হ্যাঁ
plus c।
এবার okay, so we have used the chain rule, but the chain rule may not always be useful. So if we have some complicated terms like this, I mean, if we have a case when e to the power of fx is multiplied by f prime x, then fine, we can apply the chain rule. But suppose we have something, a term like 2x cube e to the power of x square. Okay, so x square, if you take the derivative, it's not equal to 2x cube. So here we cannot use the chain rule. So therefore, finding the integral of a arbitrarily chosen function is not always easy. I mean, if you have a function, if I ask you that, okay, this is an integral and I give you a multiple choice. I give you 4 functions and ask you which of the functions will give you this integral. That is possible to find out. You can just differentiate each of the functions and you can find out in which case it matches the integral. Okay, but if I ask you to go from integral to the function, it may be quite complex. So for instance, if you have an integral like this is a pretty complicated integral, and it will be a bit difficult to find out the original form. But suppose I ask that, okay, this is a function. If I differentiate this, will I get this? Then you can answer this question. Okay, now let's go to some economic applications that we have. QL is a total product function and MPL is the marginal product function. So here we have only one input, which is labor. Now the marginal product function is the derivative of the total product. So MPL is equal to dq by dl. Now integration is the reverse of differentiation. So TP is, or QL is equal to integral of MPL into dl. So if we are told that the marginal product of an input is constant, let us say MPL is equal to A is a positive constant, we can simply integrate this. We take out A, this will be, and the integral of dl is simply AL. So we have AL plus C. Okay? So this is a linear function. We don't know what the value of C is, so we don't know what the intercept is, but AL plus C. But economic intuition will tell us that if L is equal to 0, what should be the value? We will get the intercept. So can we intuitively, what is the value of C? If L is 0, then Q is equal to 0. So that means C must be 0. So in this case, we can simply write QL, that is the total product function or the production function, is equal to AL. So although we don't have any information on C, economic intuition can tell us how we can, the possible range of C. In case of total product function, in case of production function, for instance, we know that the constant of integration will be C. In case of utility, what will be the constant of integration? Upanita, you answer this now. You were dancing on one leg.
So I wanted to answer that one anyway. So this one for utility. So for utility depends upon the function. No? Means like there
Yeah.
might be a constant, there might not be a constant. Like
No, see, when you're integrating something, you have been given marginal utility.
yes, sir.
Okay, and I ask you to find out utility. So you will get a function like UL plus C.
Yes, sir.
Now tell me what is C. Sorry, not UL, it will be UX. Let's
UX.
assume that there's only one consumption good.
Okay, sir.
So the consumer is consuming only one consumption good. So the function is,
Sir, maybe if it's one consumption, then maybe there is no zero, I guess.
there's no zero. What does it mean?
So C can be zero, I guess.
Be more definite. It's true that we are discussing indefinite integrals, but your answer must be definite. Is C 0 or not? Yes or no?
So may not be. May not be.
No, may not be. Yes or no?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, prove it. See, simply
I have to read
assume
on
that
this.
x is equal to 0. In that case, what do you have?
U0, yes. Plus C.
This is 0 plus C. But if you're not consuming anything, what is your utility?
Equal to the constant.
No.
But this is not, it
will
cannot
you
be possible. Yes, sir. It cannot
No,
be
if you're
possible.
not consuming anything,
Then there is no
can you get
utility
any
only.
yeah,
No, sir.
so utility is 0.
Yes,
So
sir.
now what is C?
So 0.
So C is 0.
Excuse me,
so
sir.
if you simply, yes,
Sir, but a utility function is not unique, means all we want is a relative preference ordering. So, sir, C
no,
can
I'm
should
assuming a
take.
cardinal function. This is not a Higgs type. See, in Higgs
Okay,
type,
sir.
we assume x1, x2. Okay. But I'm not going into that type of function. It's cardinal. Marshallian type, utility is a function of one consumption good. Achha. Now let us take the case of cost functions. পৃথ্বীরাজ, তুমি বলো তো, তোমার যদি মার্জিনাল কস্ট দেওয়া থাকে, you have been given marginal cost function, then the total cost function will, if you integrate this, you will get
TVC plus TFC.
Let me write down. You will get total cost is equal to, ঠিক আছে, this is the cost of integration. আচ্ছা, এইখানে বলো তো, what is the cost of constant of integration?
Sir, it may or may not be 0.
When is it equal to 0? Or what is the economic
Sir,
interpretation
when
of
fixed
the
cost
constant
is
of
equal to 0.
interpretation in this case? So this over here, sorry, back to the pen touch.
So this can be a fixed cost.
Wait a minute. My pen is not. Okay. So the constant of integration over here is equal to the fixed cost. If Q is equal to 0, total cost, the variable cost will be 0. This depends on output. This is the variable cost. And you have C. Okay. So if output is 0, total cost is equal to fixed cost. So in this case, you cannot find out what is the cost of integration. At most, you can just say it is equal to the fixed cost. If you are given fixed cost, then you can say that C is 1,000 or 5,000 or whatever. But it's not possible for you to give the value of C. In the case of production, in the case of utility, you can find out what is the constant of integration. Not mathematically, but by using economic intuition. Okay, now we look into a macro relationship. We have growth in money supply and the stock of money. Remember, I told you that integration has 3 important functions. One is to get the total from the marginal function, and the second is relation between stock and flows. So suppose a central bank decides to increase money supply by a constant amount, which is K per year, for the, let us say, for the next 10 years. So the initial stock of money is empty. So that means the change in money supply is equal to K. Okay, so dm by dt is equal to K. So what is M? M is simply integration of K dt. So you bring out K, integral K into integral of dt, which is simply kt plus C. So again, note over here that we don't know what is the value of constant of integration. If you know, if you let M0 represent the current stock of money, that means, okay, yeah, we can find it out if we know what is the value of M0 at this moment. So M0 is equal to K0 plus C, which is equal to M0. So that means C is equal to M0. We can rewrite MT as MT equal to KT plus M0. So in the first year, you just have M0. From the second year onwards, depending on which period it is, first period, it is K plus M0. Second period, it is 2K plus M0 and so on. Similarly, we can find out the inflation. Consumer price level is a constant function of the money supply. We can write PT is equal to beta into M, which is, sorry, beta into KT plus beta into M0 when beta is positive. So the rate of increase in prices will be a constant fraction BK, since dP by dt is equal to BK. Okay, so as I've said, that MT are examples of stock variables, while dm, dP by dt, these are all flow variables. So MT, PT, these are stock variables, value at a particular point of time. dm by dt, dP by dt, these are flow variables, the changes in the stock. Okay, now solve this. A firm uses one input labor to produce output. The marginal product function is 10 into L to the power of half. Find out the production function. শুভায়ন, তুমি এটা একটু হেল্প করবে আমাকে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার, আনসার হবে 20/3 L to the power 3/2 plus 0, C equal to 0.
দাঁড়া, okay, so you have, so 10 comes out, L to the power of half DL, এটা কত হচ্ছে?
এবার হাফ প্লাস 1 3/2 করে দিচ্ছি। হ্যাঁ, দেখি, L to the power 3/2।
আচ্ছা, এইটা কত হয়ে যাচ্ছে? 3/2 20/3 হয়ে যাচ্ছে না? আচ্ছা, এবার সিটাকে কি করবে তোমরা? জাস্ট এলটাকে 0 নিয়ে নেবে। So C is 0, so you can simply write okay. Okay. আচ্ছা, এইটা তোমরা একটু নিজেরা করো। ফাংশনটা হচ্ছে a l beta, a into l to the power of b. আচ্ছা, plus you have got some additional things. You have to draw the functions. এখানে বলতে হবে যে a এবং b এর উপর কি কি ভ্যালু কন্ডিশন ইম্পোজ করতে হবে, so that you can get diminishing, increasing or constant marginal product of labor. ঠিক আছে, এটা দেখে নাও, then I'll go into the last part, which is Riemann integral. লেখা হয়ে গেছে? এখানে আসছে না? আচ্ছা, now let's go to the Riemann integral. Sorry, এখানটা আমার একটু ভুল হয়ে গেছে. This should be, oh, I can't do this. So this should be definite integral. So the Riemann integral is basically a definite integral. See, so far what we have been doing is we took a function and we simply tried to find out, move from its derivative and try to recover the original function. In case of a definite integral, we are given a function, we are given a curve, and we are told that, okay, what is the area beneath the curve? You're given 2 points. What is the area underneath the curve between the interval, in this case 0 and 1? So over here, for instance, we have a straight line which passes through the origin, and the function is 2x. So if x is 1, y will be 2. Okay, so what is the area under the curve? And it's very easy. It is half of this rectangle. So the rectangle is 2 into 1, and the area of the triangle will be half of this. So it is half. Okay, so here it is very easy because we are using a linear function. But if we have a nonlinear function, if we have a nonlinear function, then it becomes a little. Have you done the Riemann integral, by the way?
No, sir.
Achha. Okay. Okay. So the first idea, what you have to understand, is the idea of a partition over an interval. So you're given an interval. Let us say the interval is AB, and it is a closed interval. See the square brackets? It's a closed interval. So you're given two values of x. Let us say x0 and xn. Okay, so what you can do is you can partition this interval. So this is the x-axis, and you are given two intervals, x0 and xn. And what you do is break it up into several sub-intervals. So how many sub-intervals I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They may be equal, they may be unequal. Okay, so there's nothing to suggest that they are equal intervals. So if you break it up into sub-intervals, then what are the different sub-intervals? x0 to x1, x1 to x2, x3 to xn, till we get xn minus 1 to xn. All these are closed intervals. Remember this. Okay. So if we define some values x1, x2, x3, then this interval x0 to xn can be divided into sub-intervals. Okay, so a numerical example, we have an interval 0, 1, closed interval, and we put in 0.2, 0.7, and 1. Okay, so we start from 0, 0.2. So this is the first subinterval, 0 to 0.2. The second subinterval starts from 0.2. It ends at 0.7. And the last one from 0.7 to 1. Okay, so we have got three subintervals. The interval 0, 1 is divided into three subintervals. And look at the three lengths. What are the three lengths which we give by delta 1, delta 2, and delta 3? They are 0.2, 0.5, and 0.3. So they are unequal. We can also make it equal also. It doesn't matter. Okay. But the important thing is we don't require equality of the intervals. Right? So delta I is the interval, the length of the ith interval. And I1 is the subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. Okay. So this is the depiction. I have kept a gap between these two brackets, but obviously you know that they will be like this. I've kept a gap just to show that there are two. There's another interval starting from here. Okay, but there should not be any gap over here. So you can see this. Three subintervals are used to carved out from the main interval. Okay. A set of points x0, x1 up to xn satisfies the property that they can be ranked in this form. X0 is the lowest, x1 is slightly higher, and xn is the highest. We can generate a set of n subintervals. What are these subintervals? x0 to x1, x1 to x2, and so on. And this can be used to partition the closed interval AB. When A is x0, B is xn. The length of each subinterval is delta I equal to xi minus 1. Okay. Is this definition clear? Is this definition clear? Okay. So I'm going
So
to the
can you
second.
repeat it once again? Once again.
See, you have an interval given by A, B. Okay, it's a closed interval. This is the x-axis or number line. Okay, so you have an interval and we take certain numbers. So these numbers are ranked by the indices. Okay, so x0 is the lowest, then x1 is higher, x2 is even higher, right? And the highest number is xn. Okay, now x0 is A, xn is B. Okay, so xn, x1 will be somewhere over here, x2 will be over here, x3 will be over here, and we go up till xn minus 1. Right? So we have closed subintervals. Each of these are closed subintervals. Right? So this interval is divided into subintervals. How do we define the subinterval? xi minus 1. So the first subinterval x1 minus, what is I minus 0? It is x0. What is this subinterval? The second subinterval is x2. This will be 2 minus 1, so 1. Okay. So in this way we go on. We have all these subintervals. We have n subintervals, and the length of each subinterval is simply given by this value minus this. So the general form is okay. Let me give an example. Suppose A is equal to 1, B is equal to 10. Tell me what is x0 and what is xn. Ayun, what is x0?
Sir, 1.
And xn?
10.
Okay.
Sir,
Now think
sir,
of,
but
yes.
sir, I have a question here, sir. Will not this sum depend upon the subinterval we choose or the length of the subinterval?
Okay, let me finish. Then let us see. Okay. Identify, give 3 numbers between 1 and 10.
So 3, 5, 7.
Okay. So x1 is 3, x2 is 5, x3 is 7. So what are the intervals? The interval is 1 by 10. And what are the subintervals?
Sir, 1, 3, 3, 5, 5, 7, 7, 10.
So what are the gaps over here? What is the gap over here? Length of the interval?
So 9.
No, sorry, this subinterval.
So 2, 2, 2, and 3.
2, 2,
2 and 3.
Okay. Now, Kritika, can you give me some other combination? You still have 1 and you have got xn equal to 10. Give me any 3 other numbers between 1 and 10. Okay, Upanita?
Yes, sir. Sir, 3 and 6.
Some other number? You need
9.
3 numbers.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so 1 and 10. What is the first subinterval?
1 and 3. 3 and 6. 6 and 9. 9 and 10.
Okay, and what are the gaps?
So 2, 3, 3, 1.
Okay. So as you can see over here, you have the same interval. You can split it up into different subintervals, and the lengths can also differ. Okay, keep this in mind. It's a very important point. We shall come to this later on. Okay, now definition 2. So we have defined subintervals. Okay, so we have the closed interval and we have partitioned this into some subintervals. Now, let us take Orion's intervals. Within this 1 and 3, take any point. So Orion, can you tell me any point from 1 to 3, including 1 and 3?
So 2.
Okay, so omega 1 is 2. So what we are doing is we find out what is the functional value over here. What is F2? Okay. And what is the length of the interval?
2.
This is 2. Okay. The second subinterval is 3, 5. Now take any number.
So F4.
4. So omega is 4. So we put in F4 and the interval is again 2. Okay, so let's write down the intervals first. Okay. Now 5 and 7. Let us take 7. So omega is equal to 7. Here. Let us take 7.1. Okay. So we sum up this product, right? So we get this form. This is called the Riemann sum. Okay. Now let us suppose we have the function f is equal to fx is equal to 2x. Find out the Riemann sum in this case. Kritika, sorry, Upanita, can you find out the Riemann sum for your case?
Yes, sir.
And Owen, you find out the Riemann sum for your case. Okay, the function is 2x and the omegas are 2, 4, 7. Let's make it round. It will be easier. 7 and 8. No, sorry, 8 will not do. Let's make it 10. So the omegas are 7, 10.
Sir, mine is 112.
Wow.
Sir, 94.
Okay. So the important thing is that you're getting two different Riemann sums. And the reason is that you have split up the partition in two different ways. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. You can check this if you want. Let us take any of these two subintervals. Let us take Owen's subinterval, 1, 3, 3, 5. I'm not telling you what omega is. So you can take any omega that you want. Will you get the same Riemann sum?
No, sir.
Yeah, unless you have the same omega, even if you have the same subpartitions, you're going to get different Riemann sums. Okay? So that means your Riemann sum will be equal only if two conditions are satisfied. The subpartitions must be identical and the omega values must also be identical. Okay, so over here, for instance, let's see. So we have a subinterval, we have an interval 0, 1. We have divided this into 3 subintervals and taken 3 omega 1s. Omega 1 is 0.2, this is 0.6 and 0.8. So omega can be on the boundary points also. Okay, so we have the function over here. These are the different subintervals. So we take an omega 1 and we find out the functional value over here. So this is the breadth, this is the height. We get the area of this curve. Okay. We get in the same way, we get areas of this curve. So the objective is to find out the area under the curve starting from here up to here, right? Now, there are two problems over here. One is, as you can see, it's an approximation because if you take the first subinterval, you are excluding this and you're including this, right? So this is the overestimate, this is the underestimate. Again, this is the, so the total overestimate is 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're underestimating these 3. So in all, what do you think? If you do the Riemann sum, will this be an overestimate or underestimate for this example? See, here they are roughly same. Here, this rectangle is slightly greater, and here it's huge. And plus, we are adding a small thing. So, overestimate or underestimate?
Sir, underestimation.
This will be an underestimation. But depending on the gamma that we choose, it can also be an overestimate. So the first problem is it's only an approximation. And in this case, you can see that the approximation is not really a good one, is it? This will make a huge difference. Eikhane, over here, it's a huge difference. Secondly, as I've told you, that depending on your choice of subintervals and choice of omegas, your Riemann sum will also differ, right? So first of all, it's not a proper estimate. It's either overestimate or underestimate. The second point is, if two persons try to use apply the Riemann sum, you're not going to get the same result, right? Will you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then why do we use the Riemann sum? Look over here. Look in this to this box. See, is the error term very high in this box? Yes, it's very high. Look into this box. The error term is much less in this box. This is the underestimate, this is the overestimate, it cancels out. So it will be something like this. Okay, so the error term in this box and the error term in this box is substantially different. Why is it substantially different? What is the major difference? What immediately strikes you when you're looking into this, comparing these two boxes?
Sir, sub-interval is smaller.
The sub-interval is smaller. So that gives you a hint. How can you make the Riemann sum more equal and less idiosyncratic? Idiosyncratic means it doesn't vary from person to person. So Upanita's Riemann sum and your Riemann sum should be same. How can you make it more accurate?
So subintervals বাড়িয়ে.
Subinterval বাড়িয়ে, and this will obviously reduce the length of the subintervals. Delta I will be smaller. Yes, so what we have done over here is simply found out the Riemann sum. I'm dropping this. Okay. So let us make very fine subpartitions such that what is the extreme case? The length of the subinterval should tend to 0. Okay. So we are taking these two as a subinterval. This is the interval, and we can see it's not a very good estimate, whatever omega we take. So what we do is we reduce the subinterval, we bring it over here. And what is the limiting case? The limiting case is delta I tends to 0. So what we are going to have is something like this. This is the length. Length almost 0 হয়ে যাচ্ছে বুঝতে পারছেন? So instead of boxes, we are going to draw adjacent lines. মানে এরকম হয়ে যাবে আর কি। মানে আমার হাতটা কেঁপে যাচ্ছে, but can you get the idea? এরকম করলে আমার বেটার হবে। দেখো এখানেও কিন্তু আমার গ্যাপটা খুব বেড়ে যাচ্ছে। They should be all touching each other. So do you understand how the Riemann sum can be made accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once we split up the interval into very fine subinterval with lengths equal to tending to 0, we are going to get a fairly accurate measure of the area under the curve. And secondly, the problem that we told you, the difference between Upanita and Oyun, that will now disappear. Whether both of them are taking the same subinterval, and it doesn't really leave any choice for variations in omega. The variation in omega, what will be the variation in omega? It will go to maybe the 100th place. Okay. So let's conclude at this point. We have covered the rules of integration. We have seen how we can get a total from the marginal functions, and also how we can get flows from the stocks. We have also covered the Riemann integral. In the next class, we will look at alternative ways of obtaining the Riemann sum. We are going to go into the fundamental theorems of integral calculus, and we are going to start some applications. properties of integrals if we have time, consumer, producer, surplus. I mean, I don't think I can cover that much, but at least in the next two classes. Okay. So the reference, as I've told you, the text is Hoy. The reference is Chiang and Wainwright, chapter 14. Okay.
Sir, slides গুলো কি দিয়ে দেবেন?
I will give the slides, but I'm warning you that it has audio in it. And well, it's being now used for insomnia patients. So be warned.